Hi everybody, it's Jen. Welcome back to my channel, Hallmark Plus More, where we watch and talk about shows, movies, mysteries, Hallmark ornaments, and anything else that floats our boat. So today I'm going to be reviewing a Hallmark Channel original series called Chicken Sisters, Season 1, Episode 5. So before I get into the review, I just want to say thank you to everybody who likes my videos, subscribes to my channel, leaves me comments. I appreciate it so much. If you have any comments or discussion about this episode, you can leave it below. I enjoy interacting with everybody. So, getting into this episode, they always do a previously on Chicken Sisters, and it showed a lot. So, I got excited about what we're going to see in this episode. You saw Amanda and Sergio kissing and Nancy catching them. You also saw a clip of Gus's gentleman friend, so maybe we'll find out more about that. The drop, where they kind of exposed Frank Jr.'s secret operation, and Amanda basically telling Frank Jr., I don't know if I can forgive you for this. So, where did Amanda go, right? Because she knocked on that door, and we want to find out where she spent the night. So, definitely a lot to get into in this episode. I have to say, of the first 5 episodes, this was my favorite, and I'll talk about that at the end because there was a lot going on here. But at the beginning of the episode, the wonderful narrator talks kind of like a flashback of when May and Amanda were growing up. Remember, May was the older sister, and the flashbacks were kind of around all of this stuff, right? Because we know Gus was a hoarder, and she was even when they were little. So she would have all these appliances outside, and May would kind of make it fun for Amanda, and Amanda didn't really realize that, hey, mom didn't have a lot of money. They couldn't pay the electricity bill, and so May was telling Amanda, we're playing hide and seek in the dark. It's a fun game. But really, they couldn't afford to pay their bills. So it kind of showed how May sheltered Amanda a little bit from the reality when they were kids. And that seemed realistic to me because I can see siblings doing that. So I don't think Amanda really realized at the time kind of how poor they were, right? People would make fun of them, and then May would just, snap right back and make fun of them for something they were doing, right? Just typical kid stuff. But I think, they kind of want to show that softer side of May, like she was trying to shield Amanda from the way things were. As a result, Amanda really didn't realize how bad it was until she's an adult now and as a mom and a wife of her own. Um, so then you do see a church scene, and they didn't really highlight this, but I picked up on it. When you go and they're in the church scene, you see Gus's gentleman friend. You see him next to his wife and their infant baby. So remember back at the drop when everybody was telling secrets, one of the ladies said, oh yeah, and I saw so and so, coming out of Mimi's. And so there's rumors floating about them, right? But I just don't think it's romantic. I just feel like they want you to think that Gus is having this affair with this man, which we obviously find out, from the drop. They're like, well, he's married with the baby, and then we see in the church scene he's going to church with his wife and baby. But if you remember the first time we saw Gus's gentleman friend, they were in the freezer. They didn't look like they were hugging or kissing. They looked a couple feet apart and was like holding their arms. Like I just didn't get the romantic vibe. You do get the sense through these last couple episodes when Gus is upset or down, or she will call him. So I'm thinking, is he, I don't know, a therapist or just a good friend? Or I don't feel that it's romantic, but I guess we'll have to wait and find out because, you do see that he does have a family and a baby because they were in the church scene. And Nancy confronts Frank Jr. after church. But in typical Nancy form, she's very passive aggressive. She doesn't actually go out and say, like, Frank, you had an operation and you didn't tell us. She just, says it but doesn't say it. Basically says she's disappointed in him. And then she uses an expression that actually made me chuckle. She says, "It just pops my corn." And of course, I'm sure that's a Southern expression, but it just threw me off guard and I just laughed because you never know what expression or what saying is going to come out of Nancy's mouth. But she definitely, made it known to Frank Jr., like, hey, I'm disappointed in you. This isn't the behavior you should be having. And Frank Jr. is like, well, she's the one who left. So, that was kind of Nancy and Frank Jr.'s conversation, right? And then you do find out where Amanda went. She stayed at Shauna's. Shauna, the woman who hosted the drop. So she spent the night there. But the next day, Shauna was like kicking her out. I'm running out the room. You got to go. So she goes to her mom's and she tells Gus, like, hey, I finally left Frank Jr. I have nowhere to stay. Can I stay here? And I'm sure people were surprised by this, but Gus said no. She's like, you just can't. She didn't say, like, I don't want you to stay, or she said, you just can't. So my first thought was, because I don't think Gus is this mean person. I think she still cares for her daughter. She just has this tough love and just, raises them differently. So my first thought was, it's the hoarding. Like she must have hoarded and have boxes all over her room because at that moment I felt like I saw a little bit of sadness in Gus saying you just can't, like she kind of wanted her to, but obviously Amanda's upset, like, look, I'm coming to you, I have nowhere to go, you're not letting me stay with you. And Gus just says you just can't, and it looked like she felt bad about it a little bit, even though she was kind of harsh with Amanda. But again, that's my personal take on it. So, and you do find out at the end of the episode when she walks in Amanda's room, you do see it was full of boxes. So that kind of tells you, and she kind of gets emotional and sits on the bed. So you're like, okay, she did want Amanda to come home, but she really didn't have any room for her. So, and you see Sabrina, she's kind of hungover from the night before from the drop because she's still upset about her ex. And the teenagers hang out. You see some scenes with them. So they're the only teenagers in the show. So I'm glad they get along. I really hope they don't expose, them at all since this is really about the restaurants. But we will have to see. I feel like Sabrina Sky is kind of, we're seeing that softer side to her. So I don't know. I mean, she does want the drama for great TV, but I feel like maybe she's softening up a little bit. So since she can't stay at Shauna's anymore, Gus said no. She has nowhere to go now, so she goes to the inn to try to rent a room. And they're like, it's full with the Kitchen Clash crew. May overhears and basically offers she could stay with me. And she doesn't want to, but she has nowhere else. And May has two beds in her room. So, she offers to go there. So they do. They go to her room. And I'm like, okay, are they kind of gonna have a heart to heart? Because remember, we saw that in the previews from last week. So that's what we're seeing with them. Maybe they'll start talking. Nancy sees somebody destroy Gus's flower bed and write Franny's on the house. So Nancy doesn't have these nice flowers in her house. So when she sees that they destroyed it, she wants to fix it and kind of tell Gus this wasn't me. So she goes to Gus's door and is like, hey, I know we don't get along, but I didn't do this and I don't condone people destroying property. I'm sorry. They wrecked your flowers. And of course Gus is like, yeah, whatever, you can leave. And then it shows later Nancy driving by Gus's house and Nancy sees the gentleman in the window. So, yes, she has this gentleman friend, but again, when Nancy drives by, he's not like have his shirt off or anything, and you don't even see Gus. He's just standing in the window. So again, we really don't know what relationship they have, but if you go through all of the scenes, yes, Gus calls, him when she needs comfort or she's not feeling well, but you still haven't seen them be romantic or even hug or just you just see that she lets her guard down around him. So for whatever reason they have a special relationship because we haven't seen Gus talk like this to anybody but her gentleman friend. So Amanda and May, have kind of an honest talk. Amanda tells him I left Frank Jr., tells him about the vasectomy, tells them about like, hey, he kept telling me we could try for another baby. So Amanda's completely honest with May. And then May is honest with Amanda and is like, yeah, hey, my fiance Jay's not calling me. I finally told him the truth. I've been lying to him. I've been ashamed. So they kind of have a heart to heart, which I think is really nice. I don't think it's going to last long, but I think it's nice that the sisters are connecting again. They had that little potato sack race that we saw in the previews from last week for this week, and then you see them actually do that scene where they kind of get along, and that's what they used to do when they were kids. They'd have like a potato sack race, so they had their pillowcases, and so it was a nice little bonding scene with the sisters. And they were really completely honest with each other, which I think is a really sweet moment. And then you also have a heart to heart with Sabrina Sky and her daughter. So remember, she was hungover because her ex was getting married to this 25-year-old. And remember, Sabrina's ex has all kinds of money. So, Sabrina's daughter's like, yeah, he's going to fly me to Paris. So they're supposed to have a Zoom call, and Sabrina stays in the lobby for hours, doesn't want to interrupt the Zoom call, right? Respect her ex with their daughter. And she finally comes upstairs and her daughter's crying. And I think it's a realization with her daughter, like, hey, he didn't even pick up the call. I called him several times. I know his phone is permanently to his hip, always in his hand, so he's ignoring me on purpose. I thought I would see him more, but I'm seeing him less. I see him less, and the presents are bigger. So she's even telling Sabrina, like, hey, I know he's giving me more expensive gifts, but he doesn't want to spend time with me. And I feel like that was a realization for her because remember she told Amanda's daughter like, hey, when they get divorced you get more presents, and she's coming to the realization like, my dad moved on from my mom and now he's moved on from me. He doesn't want to spend time with me, he's just giving me presents, and it's not replacing it. So she starts crying, and Sabrina Sky kind of has that heart to heart with their daughter, which I love because she was honest too. The daughter obviously was upset and honest, but Sabrina was too. Like, look, I'm trying to be a good mom and I failed and I'm failing and I'm still failing. And I think when you're a parent, you have to be honest and vulnerable with your kids, right? There's no manual for parenting. We all mess up. Nobody's perfect. And I think that's what makes it a better experience because our kids get to see that we're not perfect and that we mess up. And it's okay because that's how we get through life. We learn from our mistakes and we have to mess up. And I'm trying to do the best I can. And I know I'm not doing a good job of it. So that I really loved them having that heart to heart. Because I think it's just going to make that relationship stronger. So, one of the reasons why I like this episode is because they have a lot of honest and bonds between family, which is very important. And, Amanda was kind of even honest with with May, because May was like, well, why did you even go with Frank Jr.? And Amanda was like, look, Frank Jr. was my way out of mama's house. You left to go to New York to pursue your dream. I stayed. I'm the one who stayed. And he was my ticket out of here, right? So May's kind of realizing that, right? Amanda stayed and she got with Frank Jr., but that got her out. And May's remembering how good Jay was. So she's realizing that her fiance was so good to her and all of her happy times he was around. So she's kind of having these flashbacks like, I really didn't realize, how good I had it and how good he treated me and how he really loves me and I didn't need to lie. So I mean May's kind of realizing she really messed up with Jay. Jay was a really great person. And we go back to Nancy. She's really conflicted because she wants to fix the flower bed, but remember, she got into an argument with Gus, and Gus told her to leave. She goes and talks to the pastor and basically says, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I want to make things right. So he doesn't really tell her what to do, right? Just gives her advice. So she decides to fix the flower bed in Gus's yard, right? She didn't ask Gus's opinion, but she apparently cannot grow these flowers. They're beautiful. So she, is doing what she can do. And she takes her, gardening supplies and she just basically goes on her property and fixes it, right? She like replants it and fixes the dirt. And then Gus comes out and is like, hey, what are you doing in my yard? And then they argue and there's a water hose involved and they're spraying each other with the water hose. And they talk about like you never listen or and your husband never listened, so they kind of brought up Frank Sr. for a minute there. And like I said, the water hose was involved, they were getting wet, and then it spans out and you see Sabrina Sky with her camera crew filming the whole thing. And I'm like, wow, okay. Definitely did not expect Sabrina Sky to be right there, right? Which I think was like, wow, all right, let's see how this is going to play into the drama, right? And then you go back to the inn, and Amanda goes downstairs in the inn for something you don't know, a cup of coffee, I don't remember, but she sees Frank Jr. And Frank Jr. is there with flowers, and he's basically asking Amanda to come back home, right? Apologizes to Amanda, like, I can't live without you, I want you to come home. But her daughter is feeding him all the lines, right? So, yes, what Frank Jr. is saying is sweet, but it's not really coming from him. So, remember in an earlier scene in the episode, he's at the restaurant and Frankie, the daughter, is like, don't you want mom to come home? Don't you miss her? Well, yeah, I miss her doing my laundry. I miss her waking me up in the morning so I'm not late for work. So his daughter's like, so you're saying you can't live without her? And like she's twisting all of his words, right? Because he's basically just saying he misses his housekeeper and maid, right? But she's twisting all the words. And what is funny is Shauna, the woman who does the drop, who works everywhere, right? She works at Franny's, and she's like ready to interrupt, and the daughter's like, no, no, no. So every time Frank's like, I miss that she does the laundry, and so she's like, so you miss that she does things for you, and twisting all of the words. So when Frank Jr. is at the inn apologizing to Amanda, giving her flowers, he's saying all these things that is really what his daughter wrote out for him, and she's sitting there like mouthing it as he's saying it to Amanda. And Amanda obviously doesn't want to come back to Frank Jr., but what goes through her mind is, yeah, I'm going to miss my life. And she's picturing all of the time she had with Nancy. So by getting back together with Frank Jr., she's kind of getting back together with Nancy, so to speak. You know what I mean? Leaving Frank Jr. would be leaving Nancy too. And Nancy was her friend, her, her mom that she needed and was there for all of that time with her daughter. So she kind of said, yes, I'll go back home. She went and packed her things, but she really said yes to go back home to Frank Jr. because of her daughter and Nancy, basically. Um, so, it kind of broke my heart when she said she'd go back because I'm like, you're not going back for him. And he obviously doesn't mean what he's saying, right? Same old Frank. So you see that they're back, right? She's back. She's in the kitchen. She's cooking dinner. Frank Jr. is sitting in front of the TV drinking a beer, right? And he asked Amanda to do her laundry. Hey, can you do a load of whites for me? Um, and she's in the middle of making dinner. And she's like, yeah, sure, but I'm kind of in the middle of something. And he doesn't even look at her. Like he says the laundry thing while he's still staring in front of the television. And she's kind of, walking around the kitchen trying to get all this dinner together. And the daughter's seeing it all. And I feel like her daughter is seeing, wow, okay, he doesn't appreciate mom. Like, okay, maybe I understand why mom left. I feel like it's finally clicking for the daughter because when kids are younger or teenagers even like in this case, you always want your parents together, right? It's always nicer when you have mom and dad and you're all under one roof. But sometimes parents can be happier apart. Not everybody is meant to be together. So I feel like the daughter's realizing like I worked on bringing mom home. Maybe they, maybe mom had a point when she left. So I feel like there's just like a light bulb that went off in the daughter. At least I hope, because she needs to see her parents for who they are, right? And that, and then of course the last scene is Gus going to Amanda's room, and that's what I mentioned earlier. You kind of see she didn't say that, no to Amanda, because she didn't want her there. And if you remember that scene, even though she seemed mean to Amanda by not letting her stay, her specific words were, you just can't. Not, I don't want you here, I don't want you home. She said, you just can't. And I was like, that's odd that she chose those words. So that's why my first thought was, she's still hoarding. And then it proves it, when she goes into the room at the end, and you see all the boxes. Amanda can't stay there because her room is full. So, I mean, all in all, this was probably one of my favorite episodes because you got a lot of emotion. You got a lot of raw honesty in this episode. You got the sisters, Amanda and May, both completely honest, right? They even talked about Sergio. Amanda even told May, like, I kissed Sergio. So, I mean, Amanda really told her sister everything. And May, how she really messed things up with Jay. So they really, I feel like bonded. So, like I said, it's probably not going to last long. I'm sure they'll get into an argument in the next episode. Who knows? But then you saw the honesty of Sabrina Sky with her daughter and that raw emotion her daughter had by realizing, the role she is in her dad's life now. That he's moved on and moved on away from her. So that kind of was really realistic to me, but a very sweet moment. And then even Nancy having that talk with Frank Jr., like, hey, that really pops my corn. I can't believe you did that. And I think a little bit of that for Nancy is personal. I think we're going to find out a little bit more about Nancy's history. I hope, because remember when we saw the flashbacks, she wanted more than one child, but for whatever reason, she could only have the one. Now maybe Frank Sr. got an operation and didn't tell her, or maybe something happened with her. Maybe she had miscarriages. We don't know. We just know from the flashbacks we saw previously in other episodes, Nancy wanted more than one child, but for whatever reason, she only had the one. So I I don't know how the rest of the episodes go, but I just feel like they're setting it up for, Senior was like, okay, we're going to have one child, and Frank Jr. is like, okay, we're going to have one child. So I feel like there's a connection there, maybe. I don't know. But I just, the way Nancy looked so depressed the episodes ago when, Frank Sr. was like, suck it up, you got a family. So I feel like maybe that's something that he did, or there's some secret there, that he basically admitted, I just want to have one, or we're not going through this. So maybe we'll see a little bit of Nancy, but I feel like that added to her emotions about Frank Jr. not telling her or Amanda about having a vasectomy. So maybe we'll see that in future episodes. But all in all, I thought it was a great episode. Like I say, one of my favorites. If you have any questions or comments about the episode, you can leave them below. And until the next week, I will see you then. Bye.